So what's going on with the banks, Joel? What the hell is going on?
Mate, I just wanted to ask you the same thing.
Wow. So I feel like getting the popcorn out and just...
Yeah. I think if you've been in the industry, it's like nothing new, really. But stuff that just kept coming out is like, it gets better each day. And I think every Bitcoiner last week was like secretly cheering for you know the meme, like send everything to fucking zero?
Yes.
I think everyone sort of had that mentality in it.
There was like an electric atmosphere in the community, I think. You know, people were like feeling that this sort of, you know, the boost of Bitcoin and the destruction of the banks happening all at the same time. It's brilliant. Like, this is what Bitcoin is designed for.
Yeah, and I've been to the Bitcoin meetup on Tuesday in southwest London. So if you are around, I think it's between Richmond and Wimbledon, if I'm not mistaken. There's a lovely Moroccan restaurant where you can now pay in sats. The guy really got it. Funnily enough, like he only received Bitcoin. He never did a transaction out. So that's amazing.
Hodling.
Yeah, he's a hardcore hodler from day one. And we spoke about a few things back there, and there was like one guy explaining it, and people are sort of amazed. But if you really hear what's going on, like basically that main bank in Silicon Valley, they didn't hedge, so they didn't secure against Fed rate hikes. So they thought like, oh, they're just gonna like raise the rates and we're going to be fine because like people gave us $200 billion, which is mad. Like this perfectly shows how like the banking world works. Like, oh, they're gonna bail us out anyway. Like, fuck all, we're not gonna do any of our work. Crazy.
It's like the Credit Suisse situation. I mean, they've already been bailed out once already before, right?
Not really. I mean, in 2008, Credit Suisse is a bit different because like Silicon Valley really did a poor job with like hedging against rate hikes. So instead of securing their portfolios, instead of actually having enough liquidity in the system, they just laid back and enjoyed probably a lot of Silicon Valley insider trades and ICOs and Web3 shit. But Credit Suisse has always been a problem essentially since 2018, 2016.
Okay.
When a few investors pulled out and such. And they didn't get bailed out in 2008. They very narrowly missed it by like a few grand. But like essentially, you know, money was put back into the system to UBS back then. They were bailed out. And like Credit Suisse got a big chunk of their client base. And it was essentially a bailout as well. Like they profited. But what's really crazy now is they completely fucked it up. And if you ask any analyst who's not like biased by the mainstream financial media, they looked at Credit Suisse in, what was that? I think 2021, when one of the major CEO changes happened. That was sort of the moment it went downhill because big investors pulled out, trust was lost, and essentially it's a shitcoin.
If anything, this highlights the fact that it's just like an inside club, right? You know, they're in each other's pockets, doing deals behind closed doors, using people's investment and their money and their hard-earned cash to leverage it to, you know, bet against the odds for their own benefit. And, you know, it's a gambling game. It's like a casino.
Yeah, and the tragic thing is the house always wins because they know whatever we do, we get bailed out. And funnily enough, I can share it in like the description and stuff, or if you watch it in like a YouTube short, I don't know where it's going to pop up. Maybe we can add it to the comments. In the news conference on Sunday, where like the Federal Council, which is like the 7 clowns of Switzerland, essentially, they sort of replace a president, even though we have a president, but he doesn't have the power like normal presidents do. It's a fucked up, weird system.
All right.
They sort of sat in this conference the whole time going, it's not a bailout, it's a commercial solution, but we're giving 200 billion Swiss francs from like tax-paying money in the future to like have it as a security. And sort of like all the international journalists that were there, because they were like the Swiss and the international ones, they all sat there like, what the fuck? Even the Reuters guy was like, how is it not a bailout if like you guys take it from the tax-paying money and you assure 10 billion francs as like an insurance? it was a shit show. I'll link the whole thing.
It's funny,
there were some English questions in
because, like, this has not been the first time that they've changed the narrative or changed the tone or the message. Like, didn't they recently change what the definition of a recession is?
Yeah, and I mean, I'm asking you now, Ian. What is a recession to you?
A recession to me is two consecutive. Is it quarters or two consecutive negative? Basically, in negative balance, right? Yeah, two consecutive negative quarters.
Yes. Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, that's the official definition. That's also how I learned it in school, and it makes sense. Like, a country is not developing for half a year, so by definition, they lose more than that they make, equals recession, right?
Right.
Which is, it happens. It's not a bad thing. Not everything can go up. We Bitcoiners have experienced this the last 18 months.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, they changed it because they were... you know what I found the funniest is when I like looked at all the interviews with like Credit Suisse directors, or also like, you know, all of these venture capitalists who like screamed for like a year ago, they shouted like, oh, no government intervention for like money, what they call the student debt and all of that stuff. And now over the weekend, they turned into like the biggest fucking pro-government clowns in the world. And one guy was tweeting all in caps the whole weekend. It was fucking hilarious.
Yeah.
It sort of felt we do everything to protect like the rich guys again. And I've written about it. It's like the Cantillon effect in real life, because they secured their friends. They never thought about all of the normal people having their bank accounts there.
Yeah, it's corruption. That's what it boils down to. It's complete corruption. It's them looking after their own, doing deals behind closed doors, like I said. And we're the ones that are having to pay it back and suffer the consequences and go through living day to day, working harder day to day for their sort of secret deals that are basically going to zero.
But I'm curious, because the last financial crisis, I was 12, so I do remember seeing the, I'm outing my age now, I do remember seeing, like, you know, the Bear Stearns and the Lehman Brothers images on TV, like people going out with their boxes, leaving work, but I can't remember, like, what happened. I learned it in the years afterwards. You lived through it also in the workforce back then. What do you remember about this time? Like, were there also some personal stuff where you said like, holy shit, I may have dodged a bullet or something like this?
Well, the year prior, I bought my second house. I sold my previous house for a bigger and better house, and I was ignorant to the whole financial world, and if to be quite honest with you, I wasn't responsible with my money in any way whatsoever.
Hashtag YOLO.
Yeah, damn right. And I found a nice house, and I bought it 120% mortgage. I think I've said this before. It was with Northern Rock, and that went, obviously, that blew up. But I didn't suffer that bad, to be honest, because they were bailed out. Technically, I was paying back my mortgage to the government instead. Because it was then became under ownership of the government in some way. I don't know the ins and outs of it, but I was in a secure job at the time. I was in the police at the time, so my job was safe. In fact, it got busier because a lot of the petty crimes that people commit in times of hardship went right up. So, you know, my work life became, you know, back to back, just going to calls left, right and centre, dealing with thefts, robberies, burglaries, car crime, you know, car thefts and all that sort of stuff. Because people, they're desperate. They're going out and trying to actually, because, you know, unemployment rose. People were desperate, you know, so people resort to desperate measures.
So do you remember, wait, can I ask you this as a former police officer? Maybe you can't answer and I need to cut it, but do you remember like having to arrest someone and they blatantly told you, mate, I had to do it because I lost money in the crisis or something like this?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yes is the answer to that, and many times. Wow. And one particular memory that I have is we got a call about 11 o'clock at night one evening, and it was reports of somebody smashing up the bus stop, like breaking up the glass around the bus stop. And we happened to be around the corner, so we accepted the call, arrived there a couple of minutes later, and there was a guy just stood by the bus stop with all the glass all over him and on the floor. And he was like, okay, what's going on? Are you the one that called us? And he was like, yeah, I called you, and I'm the one that did this.
Okay.
And we're like, okay, so hold on, you broke this bus stop up, and then you called us to tell us that you did it. And he went, yep. And I was like, okay, what's all that about? And then he said, well, to be honest, I've not long been sacked. I've been in unemployment for a couple of months now. I've been inside before, and I know if I go inside now, I'm going to get 3 meals a day. I'm going to get exercise. I can play Xbox. I can do stuff in, there's a routine. I can get a course in prison. So why am I going to be out here, trying to make ends meet any way I can? I've been stealing stuff from the shops and stuff like that, and I can't be doing this all the time. Eventually I'm going to get caught, so I might as well just fess up to this now, and please arrest me.
Wow.
Please arrest me, take me into custody, and send me to prison. And the desperation that he had, it was upsetting. It really was.
But that's mad. Like, imagine first of all, wouldn't the easier crime have been to, like, call you a pig or something? Isn't it easier to, like...
Mate, that's like water for duck's back. I mean,
I don't know, something else. Like, isn't it easy getting arrested, like, basically swearing at the police officer that, like, smashing up...
I tell you what, he did a great job of smashing that bus stop up. He really did. He worked hard at doing that.
That's
but
amazing.
It just goes to show you, really, how desperate people get.
And I mean, the crazy thing is, what was the official number? I think it were 2 people in the 2008 crisis who got arrested. One poor bloke from UBS, after all.
Mate, just to quickly go back, the reason why he smashed up the bus stop in that way and dramatically is because there's a threshold. If you commit criminal damage, which is what that is, under a certain value, then it's considered a lesser crime than if you were to commit criminal damage that's worth a lot more money. So he knew that. Got it. The reason why he did that, it was for it to have an effect and likelihood that he might get charged and go to prison. At the end of the day, he didn't go to prison, so I don't know what happened to him in the end. But, I put in all the measures I could to get him some support and put him in the right direction for any sort of, like, interventions and sort of assistance he might need. But, yeah. Anyway, carry on, mate.
That's crazy. It's still crazy to me because, like, what I wanted to finish is there was actually, funnily enough, now I remember, one guy was from UBS, but like UBS America, and the other guy was from Credit Suisse in 2008 who got arrested, ironically now. But those are the only ones. And I do remember we had this in economics in school, where we used to watch at the hearings they had in the US, where, like, one guy from New York on the banking committee was, like, freaking out, saying, like, you guys did this, you fucked the essentially the world economy up. And, like, none of you are going to prison. Isn't that amazing? And if you now see this with the story you just told, where a guy essentially commits a felony to have a roof over his head, like in the Maslow pyramid of needs, having security is not something you need to commit a crime to. This should be a given right. That is crazy. That is literally crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, those that are committing the actual true crime don't suffer the consequences. The consequences are suffered by those further down the line. And the further down the line you are, the more you're going to suffer.
Yeah, and that's, again, this is one of those topics, like, does Bitcoin fix this? Because, yes, the ones further down the line have possibilities, but, I mean, let's be honest, if you have like $100 in Bitcoin and you have your rent, your mortgage, whatever, you can't do shit with it. Like, you can hold and hope that the price goes up in the future and that you can profit this way, but it doesn't help you in this situation. So, yeah, something to think about in the long term.
Yeah, definitely.
So, but going back to, like, does it feel different now for you than it did in 2008?
It does, only because now I understand Bitcoin and I'm a Bitcoiner, because I wasn't a Bitcoiner then and I didn't really understand. So now it has for me, a bigger impact because I'm observing it firsthand, you know, with the understanding of what Bitcoin is. But I think now I'm just sitting back and eating my popcorn, fascinated by the Ponzi scheme that is fiat money and the central bank and the scams that are coming out that they're trying to suppress and hide and change the narrative for. And meanwhile, Bitcoin's just ticking along, TikTok next block, doing its thing and pumping right now. You know, and so it reassures me that Bitcoin is doing what it was designed to do. And it reassures me that the stuff that I've learned about fiat money is true. So, you know, if education is what we need as Bitcoiners, this is teaching us a lesson right now about the way the world is structured, the way the world is run, the way where the money goes and how it's handled, and who gets oppressed, you know, and things like the IMF and where they put their money, and essentially enslave whole nations to do their whim. You know, now, yes, it feels a lot different for me. It's difficult to compare 2008 to now because now my understanding of Bitcoin. But yeah, it certainly does feel a lot different.
I guess, you know what I've seen on like, because again, due to my job, I see sort of the Bitcoin Twitter and I also see a lot of like the Wall Street Twitter. And a lot of the Wall Street guys were like, oh, you know, this is nothing like '08. Quantitative easing will come back. So this is essentially when like the Fed leans back in the chair and like just prints. You hear the money machine running 24/7. Yeah, but I'm sort of, that's actually funny. When I wrote my article, I was like, how many R's is in brr? So I spent 10 minutes.
You should do an R for every billion that they print.
That'd be a long R. But it was a funny 10 minutes writing that article, sitting in front of my laptop thinking, is it 10, 20, maybe 25 R's? And you sort of, you enter them in to see how it looks. Anyway.
Right.
I think it is different than '08 in a sense that '08 was like a housing market crisis.
It's for the housing crisis, yeah.
This now is the everything crisis. It really feels like it because it starts with banks now. And once banks get in trouble, and it's not like they are out of the waters now. Like I read 32 systematical risk banks are still in trouble, meaning there has to be a way where like the Fed either intervenes and prints money, which is good for us Bitcoiners. Price is always pumping on that end and more people get in because price is still the main attraction at first. And a lot of like these 32 banks have like their, you know, interwebs into housing, into investment, private equity.
Yeah, their tentacles are spread into all aspects of life.
And I mean, the one thing I think a lot of people forget, they also have their tentacles spread into like politics. We saw this with the FTX idiot.
And legacy media.
That's quite fascinating, actually. So it sort of feels if like all of them break, and it really is that point. I think if they're not break now, they will break in a few months. Because also in '08, Bear Stearns happened in March, actually on the same. Have you seen this? Like 10th of March '08 and 10th of March '23. Apparently, both things broke at the same time. And it took us 6 months into, I think, September, even October, with like Lehman to like fully emerge and panic and crisis in all fronts and all streets. So I think the next 6 months are definitely going to shit will break left, right, and center. And it does feel like everything is in danger right now because there's just more risk in the system after. You wouldn't think that after '08 more risk would be here, but they just turned the knobs and turned everything to 11 and went, oh, okay, if we go down, we go down with a bang.
Yeah, Bitcoin is inevitable, as is the fact that the fiat money is going to zero. That's inevitable as well, you know, and all they're doing is speeding up the process. You know, they're shooting themselves in the foot big time by doing what they're doing. And there's nothing, it's a death spiral. That's what Greg Foss always says, isn't it? It's a death spiral.
Yeah, I'll try my best, Greg Foss now. You just gotta do the math. I don't know if that's accurate. The Canadians have a weird...
It's third grade math. Sorry, Greg, if that's an appalling impression. But yeah.
Oh shit, he does actually follow me. Shit.
Huh?
He does follow me. I won't post it on. I just retweeted on the Rabbit Hole story.
We love you, Greg.
We love you, Greg. We also love you, Larry, if he's watching. He's also
you too. Oh dear.
But you know what I'm interested in is we did see this price pump, and I think it's a mix of a bit everything. Like you had you certainly at one point have like FOMO, because people go from like 20 to 24, then it touches 25 and they go like, oh, shit, I can't miss out. But
like
I
a psychological thing, yeah.
Yeah. It's I guess it's like all of your mates have big cars certainly, so you like also want to get a big good car. You know what I mean? Okay, back to it. I'm wondering, the first wave is FOMO. The second wave, it has to be like, okay, all of these banks are going to shit, and this big bad Bitcoin thing, which like even economical wonder kids like this Peter Soyan idiot told us it's going to zero, is now at 25.
Yeah.
Surely something must be to it. I hope we hit like 32.
This Bitcoin
like
thing might just catch on. You never know, right?
It might be like the internet in the 90s. It might work. I'm secretly hoping that like Bitcoin goes to 32K, which
Touch
would be
wood.
2x.
Come on.
Which would be a 2x from like the point where the other guy on Joe Rogan said it's going to zero. Funny as hell. But like, there has to be something there where people go.
But there's so many bloody idiots out there. Like that
I know.
Like, you know, they understand a little bit about Bitcoin, or they've just made a lot of assumptions and just treated that as fact, and then putting that out there. And if they're quite influential, as you know, I don't know, they've got however many followers and stuff like that, and people tend to listen to them. You know, that is so unhelpful, and you know, it's very unfortunate there are people out there saying this shit.
But do you reckon a lot of people went, because this is always what, speaking of Greg Foss, he says you don't have to put everything into Bitcoin.
Right.
FYI, this is not financial advice.
Yeah, but don't put everything in. You have to live, guys.
Exactly. But just start with small allocations. And I wonder if a lot of people went like, instead of putting my monthly, I don't know, 401k contributions or like my pension or whatever, if they're self-employed and stuff, into these bank stocks, which have been advertised as secure, but they turned into shitcoins. What if we put that in Bitcoin and just see what happens? I wonder if a lot of people who are actually thinking about their investment future did this, and if this resulted in the price action.
Yeah, that's true. That's interesting. That's an interesting point. Because I do wonder, you know, are there a lot of new Bitcoiners coming into the space, or is it people revisiting that sold and regret it, like I think we spoke about the other day, Joel? Or is it people now trying to sort of rethink their finances, and they can see Bitcoin pumping and they're just trying to get on the bandwagon, but have still yet to really sort of understand it and do the research? So I'm wondering how many people will stay now.
I think that's where I go, like, I don't truly believe what like everyone is quoting, because I think this is always like a top signal if everyone goes like, oh yeah, this happens 100%.
Right.
I do think it's a lot of people who sold too early. Because I funnily enough, I just written some content for a client earlier today, and I was looking on-chain metrics, and you saw how the HODL trend started to pick up massively since 2 weeks ago. So I think a lot of people are getting back in, or like they have personal barriers. You know, they say like under 25k, I'm not stacking for whatever reason. I don't understand these people. But maybe this is like how normal people think. Like, this is my barrier and I'm not going under it, and I'm starting to like stack over it again for whatever reason. I don't know. And I think we're seeing a lot of this now playing out. I don't think we're yet at the stage where like everyone gets back in because FOMO exists. Once that kicks in, this is when we now do the like 10k rises up in like 4 weeks. But yeah, it's interesting to look at it this way.
What I've noticed, I don't know if it's the same for you, but all the scams are coming back now. all the,
yes.
bots on Twitter. If I put anything on Twitter now, like I can see like 11 comments instantly. I'm like, hold on. Start blocking all these people, all these bots. Sorry, all the scams are coming up. I'm flicking through YouTube Shorts, and every second video is about crypto and Hex and all this nonsense. So it's back, which is reassuring in the sense that maybe there's a turnaround here for Bitcoin, and maybe we're starting the bull run. But it just makes me sick, really, that these people that are out there to scam people are back. So watch out for the scammers. Keep an eye on it, because they're out there in force again.
And that they turn it on like instantly. That's the scary thing. What I always say is,
switch a button, and all of a sudden, all this stuff comes out.
Especially on YouTube, like the suck a dick face is back. Where every thumbnail is like, be creative, guys. Well, I mean, by this. All of the price predictions.
The ridiculous price predictions, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Like, I know price is the first touch point for a lot of people. It surely has been for a lot of us. But where I do see it immensely is, we actually had this with the London Bitcoin space thing. Have you read this thing with like that club, which now accepts Bitcoin, but it's a shitcoin club? If not, I can quickly maybe lay the groundwork.
Yeah.
So there is like a social club in London, sort of like Soho House, but to get access, you need like an NFT and like venture capitalists who are ICO
these people at the Bitcoin space that time.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah.
So what I do see is you have a lot of that stuff coming back, where they use Bitcoin as like a Trojan horse to get their shit in. So I also have a lot of inquiries from venture capital funds suddenly writing me cold emails like, hey, we do want to feature Bitcoin a bit in our content, but we also have like gaming in Web3, metaverse, and NFTs, all of that shit, where I go like, again, they're alive still.
Right.
But I think this just keeps happening for a lot of cycles now until they die out.
Show you there's so much money to be made from these scams, because clearly people fall for it, right?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of money to be made. Yes, if you're in the team, I guess. Because I'm just thinking back to my days when I used to work for these companies as a freelancer. Like, I used to write copy and stuff for them. Please, guys, don't judge. I took the profits I made and put it into Bitcoin, so like it ended up in the right place. But I do remember these teams are very good at hyping you up and pulling you in. So like, our tokens private sale, like the sale they do before they go public, is 10 cents. So let's say you get paid $3,000 a month for your work, and you decide like 50% is paid in fiat and 50% is paid in their token. So they give you $1,500 a month at like these 10 cents that they spoke about. So like the investors did. Right. Then if it goes live and it 10x's, like you become a millionaire. And this is like all of the stuff they talk about. Yeah. I mean, the first time I did it, I was like, okay, that sounds nice. It's illogical that your token will go from like 10 cents to $1. I knew this already, but like, hey, more shit to convert into sats. That was my thinking behind it. But then once you go through these projects, you realize they all dump immediately. So like it's hard to actually get a good price out of them. You end up losing money. So the more projects you take on, you just tell them, pay me full in fiat. I don't want your stupid tokens.
It goes back to what we were saying earlier. The house always wins, right? So whoever's propping up these scams, they're the ones benefiting from it.
Yes, exactly.
So they're just sucking all the vulnerable sort of people that they've sold this scam to. They're just draining them dry.
Yeah, and I think the silly thing is we'll now see more and more, again, Bitcoin as a Trojan horse stories where they go like, we believe in the vision of Bitcoin, and we like Lightning, but if you use our wallet with this token, it's 10 times faster.
What's that guy called? Is it Richard Hart?
The Hex guy. Yeah.
The Hex guy. Like I said earlier, I scroll through YouTube Shorts, and who pops up is this guy. He's been interviewed by some guy doing some podcast somewhere, and he's saying, he asked him a question about Bitcoin. He's like, he said all the great things about Bitcoin. Bitcoin is created by Satoshi Nakamoto, is decentralized. It's, it's grinding up, and it always will. However, it's slow, it's clunky. This is where Hex comes in. It's faster, this and that and the other. So, like you exactly said, it's using Bitcoin to sell shit, and it's so frustrating because a lot of people. I don't know. A lot of people. I think I'm saying a lot of people because I'm fearful a lot of people will fall for it. But
yes,
whether that's the case, I don't know. But you certainly see the old Trojan horse thing. Yeah, for sure.
I think the technically speaking, the only thing that could save these people who blindly get into these things would be regulation. I'm not stating that I am pro-regulation. I think I made it very clear in a couple of cases that they are just part of the same mafia. But this is where you actually see these arguments on Twitter where apparently all of these shitcoin companies in the States have gotten, and I'm really talking about shitcoins like Hex, Doge, and all of these things. They've gotten not cease and desist letters, but like an information that there might be an inquiry into their business dealings. And like with Richard Hart particularly, you saw how like the thing flipped, and he eventually turned his profile into like a neutral place, like no more Prada bags, no more mention of Hex. So I do think that we might see a slowdown with all of these projects if like the regulators decide to intervene. But even if they do, once regulation is clear for them, shit will pick up the fan again and they'll start continuing the same thing. Or even worse, what I think is they'll build projects on Bitcoin, which will essentially be scams like BitConnect a few years ago, or OneCoin, or however they're all called, where they sort of use Bitcoin in marketing only and then, build their own shit into it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we'll see a lot of that in the coming months, because it always has been the same. Yeah,
just be careful out there, guys.
Mm-hmm.
Take your Bitcoin into your own self-custody. Just tread very carefully.
There's only one Bitcoin into self-custody. Hold your keys, not your keys, not your cheese. And if people tell you they're Satoshi Nakamoto, they probably are a piece of shit. So don't listen to them as well. I'm not mentioning the person I'm thinking about because I don't want to get sued. Although we would be the right jurisdiction, apparently. But yeah, if these people exist as well, which a lot of them will come out, nope, that's not the Bitcoin way. These are not the right thing. So Ian, where does that leave us? What can we expect in the coming months?
Well, it goes back to stay humble, stacking sats, right? We just need to keep putting the signal out there. We need to just, do right by Bitcoin. This is my ethos. I believe in it. I'm still fully trying to understand it, and I don't think I ever will. And that's what's fascinating about it for me. It's an endless rabbit hole. And all I'm focused on really is watching what's going on the landscape, trying to put signal out there as best I can on socials like Twitter and things like that. Like today, I just tweeted a Bitcoin 101. Basically,
which FYI, you're doing an amazing job with that. If I'm opening up Twitter, I always see 7 or 8 questions from your end, which makes me wonder if you work.
Sorry about that, guys. Well,
that's a different question.
I'm a rare breed of a man where I can maybe multitask. But yeah, mate, it's just I thought, you know what? There's probably some people out there on Twitter that still don't really understand Bitcoin. So I just put like a Bitcoin 101 tweet out there about what Bitcoin is. Someone might pick it up. So that's all I'm doing is just trying to create signal. What about you?
And what for the people involved, what's your Twitter handle that we also have it in the video?
At questioning Bitcoin. No, I think it's at questioning BTC, because I couldn't get at the whole word Bitcoin in. So it's at questioning BTC, or if you type in questioning Bitcoin on Twitter, it will pop up. Yeah, for sure.
Nice.
What's on the agenda for you then in the next coming months?
I mean, I'd sign everything you said in the first part as well. And I would say there are a lot of interesting projects like BTC Map, for example, or, look for these local Bitcoin meetups. And I know a lot of Bitcoiners don't like to spend Bitcoin, but maybe if you have some gains, use them. Use Lightning, see how it works, do some peer-to-peer swaps, sales, purchase some Bitcoin maybe at the meetup, and all of these things to also use it, because I think that's one of the biggest thing to understand how powerful it is. If you use it once, if you pay for your coffee in Sats, if you pay for your meal in Sats, that's really an amazing feeling. And
it is really a really amazing feeling. And at the end of the day, Bitcoin is peer-to-peer, so use it for that purpose, right?
Yes. And it literally takes, I did it last time, it takes 2 minutes, depending on your internet connection, to like download Wallet of Satoshi. Maybe not the best for like self-custody, but you have to start somewhere.
Yeah.
Get some Sats, maybe work with CoinCorner if you're in the UK, send them back and forth between these wallets and just see what the magic feels like, because you do know where it drives you down. What I mean by that is, like, if you're interested in payments, you probably go down the Lightning road. If you're interested in, I don't know, self-custody, you go down that road. If you're interested in human rights stories, whatever, you go down that road. So you do find your niches, but use it. I think that's the number one thing to be convinced of it all.
100%.